Besides sending the police, you might want to send an ambulance or a hearse.
Hello, Billy Ho here, coming at you. Week 12, DraftKings, main slate Sunday, 11 games, NFL. We're getting into the meat. It's getting down toward the end of the regular season. People are bucking for those playoff spots in their home leagues, and we just passed Thanksgiving slate, and that was just not quite what I expected. I had some of the right pieces, but that late game kind of shootout ruined everything for me. But, hey, keep grinding, trust the process. That's what I say. You look at the beginning of the video if you're watching it on YouTube, keep grinding. I keep telling myself every time I get down on myself, I know what I'm doing. I'm experienced at this. It's just, it'll come. So just, like I said, keep on grinding, baby. So let's do this. All right. We got a 11 game slate. Like I said, 4 late games. And the strategy, I think I typically try to load up on the early games and then try to hope the late games don't shoot out. But it's kind of going to be the opposite of that for me this week because there's just too many juicy games on that four, especially when there's 4 games. Now, when it's down to 3-2, I will try to fade even almost no matter which game it is. But we're looking at that, and it's 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I guess since my buddy Degenerate 75 calls Central Time the Lord's time zone, I'm going to call Eastern Time Zone Big Brother time zone because that's where Washington, D.C. and our government is. And Big Brother's watching, baby. So let's do this. All right, first game I want to look at, and I'm going to share the old screen here. And that first game is going to be Los Angeles Rams at Kansas City. I didn't want to start with too many blockbuster plays. Be sure to stick around. I got some pretty good plays coming in here, and one of them is in this game. You can hit those timestamps, and it'll take you right to the game I want to talk about. And I might, I'm going to throw in weather and everything else. So, because there is a few concerns there, but not so much in this game at Kansas City. And actually, honestly, I haven't checked the weather in Kansas City. I don't know for sure, but sometimes you at least get an initial idea from DraftKings. But go check it out. I mean, because they'll put rain up here and it'll be in a dome. So always check your weather, just like PGA, just like anything else outdoors. You need to check that weather. So anyway, this game has I don't know what written all over it. It's got a pretty high, well, not a high total, obviously, because I mean the Rams are it's a fire sale, dumpster fire, whatever you want to call it. Stafford's out. We don't know who the quarterback is. If this guy Perkins might be the QB, and he might be viable because he can run. He's fast. So keep an eye on the ownership because Wolford has a neck injury. He would start if he's cleared. I know he doesn't have an injury designation, but the coach may want to run him out anyway, just to get a look at Perkins a little bit more. And I think the people were pretty high on him in the preseason. So, and then you got Patrick Mahomes, and they're implied for 28 points, but and honestly, he is the highest owned quarterback. He's the most expensive, and he gets there 30 points a week. A little bit of running. I expect this is one thing I do expect less rushing unless he absolutely gets flushed out of the pocket by Aaron Donald and takes off running. You will not see any designed runs. They are going to keep him safe as possible. He'll play. I mean, he may not finish the game, but he could get everything he needs to get 203 touchdowns in the first half. I mean, he can get there in 3 quarters easily in this game. I just don't know what kind of fight the Rams are going to put up in this game. It's tough. I mean, you got Pacheco at running back, who's obviously viable. I've already got him. This was just a mock lineup I did. I'm definitely not going here. Higbee, I don't know if he's a run back or not. but actually, this was my initial lineup. I like Tannehill. I'm gonna go ahead and clear that off. We'll get to them in a minute. But we need to know for sure who's starting, and obviously Kelsey, and he can get his the same way, but the I don't know what you want to call it when you talk about betters. He's at least a 2-star play, if not a 3-star play. Is my man Sky Moore, who is going to be getting snaps, and he got 5 for 63 in the last game, flat min 3K. I'm definitely playing a good amount of him because obviously Hardman's on IR, Tony's questionable, not practicing, and Juju questionable, and haven't heard his status. He's concussed, but he sat out. He may clear, but it doesn't say anything about him practicing. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. But I'll be scared to play Juju because I loved him the week prior. And of course, he got KO'd. He took a hell of a hit in that game. So I don't know. He may or may not clear. It's hard to say, but I still think that Sky, he's been there all season long. I think maybe he's starting to get with the offense a little bit. So he is definitely my play in as far as that goes. And but that's all. I did that game first because I'm not 100 on it. I mean, it's just going to be ugly. I don't know how many points the Rams are going to score. Maybe pay up for Kansas City's defense and play Pacheco, and that's a real cheap contrarian pivot. But we'll move on to Las Vegas, Seattle. First of our, actually, it's really not that bad. There is rain in the forecast in Seattle, but adoy, it's Seattle. It rains 24/7 there. Go watch the movie Seven, Brad Pitt. What's in the box? And it'll tell you. So it rains all the time in Seattle. It's not really going to be that windy. Uh, Geno Smith, I feel like we haven't seen him in a long time, but he just had the bye week. And he is going to be second highest on quarterback as far as I see right now. I see him as a fine play. He's got 25-point upside. And if he breaks off a couple of runs, which he can do, and he can take it himself, he hasn't scored a rushing touchdown since week 4. So, if you want to say regression on that, but he can get you 20 to 40 yards rushing if it pops right. And you can see he's pretty consistent with the 2 TD upside. And we got both Metcalf and Lockett healthy, and both of them are projected for about 15 or 16 points apiece. It's, and but the other side, Las Vegas, I don't know. They got that win in an ugly type situation against a terrible Denver team in an overtime touchdown, and Carr is just not. He is he's almost kind of like Geno. He's 200, 250. They throw a lot. I mean, he's 5,700, but he needs that 300 bonus to get there, obviously, because he's got 2 touchdowns in every game. You're not going to get any rushing out of him, so give up on that. But I've kind of figured it out. I mean, not figured it out. It's just kind of remembered. Non-rushing quarterbacks need to do is hit that 3. They have to hit 300 in order to pay off. I mean, unless they throw 4 touchdowns, even 220 and 3 touchdowns, and they still don't get there with the 4 points per. Now, if they get a rushing touchdown, obviously, but like I said, rushing. So, but if you want to pivot off Geno, I mean, Kenneth Walker's likely going to be the highest owned running back, but I think he's got every bit the upside, 30-point wise, as McCaffrey, CMC, and Eckler, who are probably 2 other really, really solid plays at running back this week. Pass catchers. Walker can catch passes out of the backfield just fine. And he's a tough hombre. K9 is his nickname. So, he's got some dog in him. So, yeah. And I don't know, it's, the rain is not going to factor, but if they get a lead and they're at home, they could jump out to a really early lead. The other thought is, I think DK Metcalf, and this is just my own narrative street talking, I have him in my home league. He's due. He hasn't scored a touchdown. Well, I mean, 1 touchdown, but he has missed. I feel like in end zone targets, red zone targets, he's missed 5 touchdowns this year. That's gone off his fingertips, 2 high penalties, everything like that. So I do kind of like Metcalf this week, but that's about it for that game. Honestly, I want to cover. This was one of my interesting games here. I'm gonna go to this one next. Is the Chargers at Arizona, and it looks like Kyler's gonna play. So just get that off your plate. The other initial take besides Tannehill was I thought Herbert. This is an absolute smash spot for Herbert. Talk about somebody. We got used to him getting 300 yards a game, but he hasn't done it in 6 weeks. But he's been missing Keenan Allen, Mike Williams off and on. He's got Keenan Allen back. Keenan Allen was on a pitch count last week. Mike Williams is still questionable, but I don't care. I would rather him be out because Mike Williams light, my man Josh Palmer, is every bit the man as good. I mean, he'll get there. I'd rather have him at 5,400 than have to worry about 6,300 Mike Williams. So give me Josh Palmer all day if Williams is out. Hopkins is an obvious run back. And you obviously have Eckler, who has 2-3 TD, 150 total yards, 35-point break the slate upside. And he's going to be super popular, but I'm definitely going to have some Eckler. So this game looks real good to me, and I'll keep an eye on ownership. But it's a pretty cut and dry the way you want to stack it. I still don't know if I want to play Kyler. I mean, if you want to think something weird's going to happen, you could probably play some Connor because Connor can do damage. He can get in the end zone and get you there, but he's not going to break the slate, in my opinion, unless somehow he gets 3 touchdowns. But the Herbert Palmer, Eckler, Herbert Palmer, they got Everett back. I mean, he's got a full arsenal. I foresee, hopefully this game will be a shootout. I foresee him getting that 300 bonus, 3 touchdowns. So I'm definitely, he's one of my top 2 quarterback stacks of the week. So I'm on that. And this was my first look. I told you about Tannehill. I've kind of softened that approach. There is going to be some wind possibilities, 15 to 20 mile an hour gusts in Nashville. And I think that may play a factor. Then the other thing is a factor is fat doses of Derrick Henry, which could eat up possessions and opportunities. Now, the other side of the vault, you see that right there. Joe Mixon is out, and this becomes the chalk of the chalk. I'm glad DK priced him at 5,600. That's awesome because there's a lot of other value out there that you could pivot off of, and that was just like what do they call that, leap year anomaly game? The 3 touchdowns, 30-point, just break the slate. I mean, he's a good running back. Don't get me wrong, but he's going to probably see your 11 for 30, but the 52 yards and the 3 touchdowns ain't happening. I think even though it says 29th right here, Tennessee at home is a pretty solid defense. Chase may be back. Keep an eye on that. That's the only reason with Mixon out and Chase coming back. Burrow is at 6,700 viable because he can throw 40 times. I mean, that was a monster game right there. That's what we're looking at for Joe Burrow. And, and he does run, but not that often. He's opportunistic in the red zone. He'll take off for these 20-yard touchdowns when the defense is chasing Chase. So he's viable, especially if Chase plays and he gets some practice in. Chase has been out for a long time, so there's some opportunities there. But those were the main, actually, just game stacks. But I do have some other miscellaneous, I called it. If we go over here to hit up New Orleans, Jimmy G looked really good Monday night throwing the ball, and I think now that CMC's on the team and he's had 2-3 games with him, he's got that safe floor still, and he still hasn't had that upside game. Well, I guess the 40-point upside game, obviously, against the Rams. But he's still, the receptions are there. He gives Jimmy G that extra solid target that he has bumped his efficiency up exponentially. So, the efficiency is there, even though he's throwing it under 28, 29 times. He can get there, but he's 5,600. So, it's a risky proposition, but he's got Debo, he's got Kittle, he's got Ayuk, and CMC. He's got some weapons. And of course, Mitchell in the backfield will, vulture some touchdowns and whatnot. But that was just one note. Another note is before we bump out of here, Baltimore, Jacksonville, Lamar he had an illness last week, so I think he was a little off his game. And they were like, "Oh, trash game, 13-3, blah blah blah." And he only ran for 31, which the rushing touchdown bailed him out. He still scored almost 17 DK points, and he's just limited. But I think we got a fully healthy Mark Andrews, who's cheaper than Kelsey with the same or better upside. So I would rather play Andrews. I think a little stack would be just Lamar, Andrews, Kirk. And I don't mind Lamar without anybody or no run back. Just throw him in there. But that's kind of the reason I'd play naked quarterbacks is if they're cheap. Like that one dude down here that we talked about, Perkins. If he gets to start, toss him in at 5K naked. And then that way you don't have to worry about matching him up with anybody. And you just hope he rushes for 90 yards and a touchdown, and then maybe throws a couple rando touchdowns or something lucky. That's kind of how that works. The Tampa Bay Cleveland game, I think, is a stay away. The only reason I mention this game is because to avoid the weather, it looks bad. I'd keep an eye on it. It looks like heavy rains, lots of rain, and 15 to 20 mile an hour winds. Another one is obviously the Miami game. Well, I'll mention Atlanta, Washington first. That's another rainy condition game, but not much wind to factor. I still don't have a lot of interest, but there is a weather concern. So I figure I mention them together. Now, the last game I want to talk about is the Houston Miami game before we bump. Houston, I don't really want anybody on this. Although, now that I mentioned it, I forgot they are going to Kyle Allen. So Kyle Allen is a capable quarterback. He played, I believe, some snaps for Carolina a few years ago and was very effective. Some snaps for Washington, and it was pretty effective, decently so. So that could bring a low-owned, low-key Brandon Cooks at 5,200. If we come out here and he gets back to this 10, 12 target game, I'm going to mark that down, actually. Just maybe Cooks as a one-off. I don't know that you'll see a Kyle Allen get there, but he could be chucking it a lot. I don't have a lot of interest in Pierce. The running back situation for Miami, of course, you always have against Houston, Hill and Waddle. People just don't throw on Houston because they can run all over them and beat them pretty easily. But you never know. Things happen. But Hill and Waddle are very expensive for the risk you're taking. So, caveats there, right? But the guy that I think will be the play, and I'll still eat that chalk, is Jeff Wilson Jr. 5,900 is way too cheap with Mostert, and I picked up Mostert in my season long, and he came through for me a little bit, but he's been banged up for the last couple of weeks. He's questionable, not practicing. He's either going to be limited or out. So Jeff Wilson, I'll eat the whatever, even if he hits 20%, I'll eat that because 2 to 3 low owned guys is really all you need in a lineup anyway. So and 5,900 with 20 point, 25 point, 2 touchdown upside or whatever, he can get you there. He needs the 100 yards. He's not going to catch a lot of passes, but I mean, he did get 5 targets, and that's outrageous for Jeff Wilson. Maybe he just was so surprised that he's being targeted. But 2 for 24, if you gave me 4 to 5 points in the passing game with Jeff Wilson, that's all day. I mean, I think he's got a nice safe floor with the mid-teens. 3X won't be much of a problem for him, I don't think. But you never know. I've been wrong before, wrong all the time, really. It feels like it. It's very frustrating sometimes when you just think you got a handle on everything, and then it just goes the exact opposite. It's like the gods are doing it to you on purpose. But I digress. Another rainy game, Atlanta, Washington. I should have mentioned that as well. I think I did. I don't remember now, but I don't want any part of that game anyway. Let's bounce. Taking too much of your time already. I appreciate you watching, all guys in the Discord. Great Thanksgiving. We really been getting after it, even though it's only 2 or 3 of us in the chat in the NFL. That's very intimate, in my opinion. We bounce ideas off each other. I'd love to have a couple more. The link to join is totally free in the description of the video. The contest, hopefully we can fill it. It's I'm not sure where we're at right now, but probably around 30 to 40. But there's 50 spots available. There's always open spots. That link's in there too. DraftKings, $2 entry. It's top 2 paid. It's a really, really good low rate contest. A lot of fun. It could bail your whole week out if you hit the right lineup. So until the next video, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Peace.